How to accept yourself and not care what other people think. Mastering Disability Adjustment. Now, that would have been a book title I would have loved to have found as a teenager, coping with peer pressure and a physical disability. But the reality is, self-acceptance and worrying about what other people think it's a global issue. It's something that we all cope with at some point, whether it be about weight or big ears or whatever it is. We all have certain things that we don't like about ourselves, and that can be a problem if we really let it take over. Now, where disability is concerned, I found there was a couple of things that came up all the time. And one was the idea of wrongness. One of the most frequent questions I have been asked throughout my life, even sometimes before my name, is, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? It's not really a great way to start a conversation, I will tell you that. But as a younger woman, I used to find that really annoying, because it was as though because my disability was apparent, it gave people permission to inquire about information about it. And it took a little while for me to learn about setting appropriate boundaries. I mean, I'm entitled to my privacy, right? But when I was asked that question, and if I did choose to answer, I learned to answer in a way that made me feel better. I would answer by saying something like, well, there's nothing really wrong with me, but I do have charcot-marie-tooth disease. So that way I felt, I was getting a little bit of an education poke in there, and that just made me feel better. And sometimes people got it, and sometimes they didn't, I could tell. But at least I felt better about it. And the reason I did that was because I truly believe that people do not necessarily intend to hurt my feelings or to, cause me to feel denigrated in some way. It's just probably curiosity. And, I would prefer they kept it to themselves. There is respectful boundaries that people should keep, I believe. But the one thing that was really important to me is I learned within myself that there's really nothing wrong with me. Showing up in the world with a disability, with, in my case, I walk with, apparent difficulty and have trouble gripping things and, a whole host of things. But that does not make me wrong. And I think in many ways I have my mother to thank for that. She too had the same disability, so in my eyes she was beautiful, and she depicted a quality I equate as gentle strength. And she died when I was 11, so I didn't have the good fortune or advantage to have her guidance throughout my growing up life, or beyond age 11. But in my mind she was beautiful, and certainly there was nothing wrong with her. It's just the way that she was. And so maybe that was good for me, because then that allowed me to really embrace that for myself. Now, the other thing that a lot of times I encountered was what I called the shame shower. People with good intentions might say, oh, that's a shame. And that's kind of like, what do you do with that? So, I learned to sidestep that, but I didn't really let things annoy me, because I tried to believe, or I do believe, that people have good intentions. There's just really not enough exposure and maybe education. There certainly is more now. I'm dating myself, aren't I? But yeah, so I don't hear that as much. Although I did hear it recently, and that was really did surprise me. I was talking with someone in a work situation, and they were inquiring about some of the things that I do, in my technology work. I make websites and do a number of technology things. And she inquired about my cartoons. And I said, yes, I make my cartoons as well. And then her comment was, wow, that's a shame. Imagine if you didn't have your disability, how much further you would have gone in life. And I felt really taken aback by that, and I found myself, glancing over at my awards and degrees and had to remind myself that, okay, it's 2020. And so that, again, it was just sort of took me aback, but that was definitely sort of in the, the shame shower category. But I think the important thing in terms of, dealing with the self-acceptance and the, what people think. I mean, if you think about it on a scale, if you don't think very much about yourself, then the more important thing is going to be what people think. Whereas if you can bring that up and have some kind of balance, and then maybe you're doing a little bit of this kind of thing, but it's really important to keep this up as high as you can in order to feel good about yourself. And why shouldn't you feel good about yourself? Everything is so much easier if you do feel good about yourself. So that's one thing I really try to remind myself and encourage other people as well. And one book I would recommend people look at or consider reading is The 4 Agreements. And the one agreement of the 4 in particular is on, not taking things personally. And I really like that because it really, really kind of nails the point that, when people say things and ask questions, really isn't about you. It's more about them. So if you take things personally, then, it's really, you're taking on their stuff, basically, when really, it has nothing to do with you. So it's really good to keep some boundaries and just to remind yourself that there's nothing wrong with you, whether you have a disability or maybe you deal with some weight issues or, some other health challenges. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just the way the situation is for you at that time. But the more important thing is to keep within yourself the base, a really healthy base of, loving kindness, and just be gentle with yourself, as I always say. So I think that it's really important for all of us to maintain our sense of self-acceptance and just, explore life. Because you'll always have good things, bad things. So it's really important to just accept yourself the way that you are and to embrace life as much as you can. The good, the bad, the ugly. It's all there for us to enjoy, isn't it? So, I don't know, maybe you found that helpful. If you know anyone that deals with any kind of health issues or disabilities that you think that might find that helpful, be sure and share this video. And I'd appreciate it if you would like to like the video or not. That's okay too. Or subscribe, because if you subscribe, then that helps YouTube to share the love, share the video around. So until next time, thanks for joining me today. And remember, be gentle with yourself and those around you. Bye for now.